Arbor Realty Trust stock is the latest darling of the short sellers. By the short sellers, I mean the same ones that are shorting Medical Properties Trust, which is a stock that I'm in pretty heavily. Now, the current share price of ABR is $13.37 or $13.37. So by that metric, you might call it a very elite stock. It's a mortgage REIT. And the fact that it's a mortgage REIT and people are talking about comparing the current housing market to, say, the 2008 market, etc., lends it to perhaps a lot greater fear and uncertainty. And mortgage REITs are, by their nature, perhaps a little bit harder to understand. They're sort of a lot like banks in that way, in that there could be risks that you don't even realize until it's too late and they've already taken massive losses. Now, let's look at some facts about ABR. First is, of course, as I mentioned before, it's a new favorite target of shorts, being over 40% sold short. This is even higher than the short percentage of Medical Properties Trust, so it would seem that the sentiment in the market is even more bearish on this one. And currently, their valuation on a basis of their book value or net asset value is very similar to the point where I started to take an interest in Medical Properties Trust. ABR is at roughly a 0.8 price to book ratio. This means that it's roughly a 20% discount off of their own book value. And usually it seems like they trade at a slight premium, but we'll assume that the book value is more or less the fair value for this purpose. Now, I've been theory crafting a little bit of, if I had a second chance to replay my entire approach to Medical Properties Trust, how might I do it? Because as some of you may remember, that other stock, Medical Properties Trust, fell substantially from its 0.8 price to book value. However, the short interest was never quite this high. So in this instance, my thinking is the short interest probably will increase because it seems like it has still a good ways to drop. So how might I play this, assuming that this is a similar starting point wise from when I initially took an interest in MPW? Well, if I was clairvoyant, I would have known it still had another 50+% left to drop from that point. Now, how would one take advantage of that drop? Well, my personal feeling is I would probably do something with options, maybe buying long dated puts, and simply wait for the shorts to continue attacking the stock, increasing the short interest, driving the price down, etc., until it reaches something of a bottom. Now, I can't say for sure what the exact bottom would be, but with MPW, it ended up touching its 2008-2009 area lows during the Great Financial Crisis. In this case, if it were to follow the exact pattern of Medical Properties Trust from the point it's at now with the short selling and everything, it could get under $1. I'm seeing low prices around the 50 to 60 cent mark in 2009 for Arbor. That is absolutely insane. And frankly, I think if it did get this low, it could mean that the company is doomed. However, if short interest is really high by that point, and I've already profited on a bunch of puts, I could reverse course and put some of those profits into a long position and take advantage of a potential price recovery or even short squeeze if the short percentage is actually really high. We don't know for sure that that'll happen. It could be a zero, so I wouldn't risk all of the gains from the puts, just some of them. Unless, of course, I was highly confident that this wasn't actually going to go bankrupt. And which, like, at this point, I'm not. Just because with MREITs, I'm at a loss for even how to necessarily assess that risk. But I do think this could closely mirror MPW and what happened with them, where they fell just below $3 per share earlier this year, and now they're back over $5 a share. one potential catalyst for the price drop could be any cut in the dividend, since they've got a growth streak of 11 years. But if their payout ratio is somewhat stretched. Now, granted, the one from the data feed here is net income, and net income isn't really what REITs use to cover their dividend. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But if their payout was stretched and they did need to cut it back to preserve capital due to just the current environment with the housing market and with interest rates and everything, well, I think that could be the catalyst that sends shares tumbling further down. That was certainly a factor for Medical Properties Trust in this situation. And I realize the assets they hold are pretty different, but I just am noticing some similarities with the setup and need to explore further some of the specifics on ABR. In the event of a dividend cut or some other negative catalyst, we'll gradually see these analyst targets on the low side especially go lower. We'll see more analysts downgrade from buy to hold or from hold to sell, and the price will tumble and tumble and tumble, and the targets will keep chasing it lower and lower, and it'll be a vicious cycle. Revenue did take a dip this last quarter, so that's probably adding to the stress on this stock and making the shorts a little bit more ambitious and bold. But if for whatever reason that started to recover or whatnot, and retail, for instance, were to hold the line, well, maybe it doesn't really drop all that low and you do get some kind of a little short squeeze out of it. However, I don't think that the shorts are done attacking this yet. And I do think that with the interest rate environment the way it is, the housing market the way it is, strained to say the least, we could see more attacks. And I do think those attacks have a pretty good chance of being effective, considering how fearful people can be regarding terms like mortgage-backed securities, especially anyone who remembers 2008. And I think perhaps it's easier to represent that there's some kind of shenanigans and stoke fear on this. Make sure you comment below if you hold ABR and have any specific opinions on it or know anything that maybe I left out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more, like for the algorithm. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Macho Mog, link is in the description, and join my Discord, link in the description. Support me everywhere. Take it easy, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.